where we have real talk, real people with real people, real issues, real events, just like you and I. So tonight we have joining us is Corrado DeRosa. Welcome.
Hi, Tanya. How are you?
I'm well. So tonight so you are an author. You are also a full-time, part-time millionaire.
That I am. Yes, absolutely.
So tonight we're going to be talking about, I'm looking forward to this, our audience, I'm looking forward to having the open discussion on, full-time, part-time millionaire. What inspired it? What is it? What does it mean to be a full-time, part-time millionaire? I would like to believe I'd like to be a full-time millionaire. So what really does that mean? And share a little bit about your story of this inspiration of the book.
Well, that's a great and fair question, Tanya. Thank you for asking. In terms of the title full-time is actually full-time job, and part-time millionaire is the side hustle of becoming or creating a part-time side hustle while you're maintaining a full-time job. So full-time, part-time millionaire just came to mind because that's exactly what I was doing. I was leveraging my full-time job to help me with my side hustle and create wealth through that side hustle.
Okay, and what was the side hustle, or what is the side hustle?
And so what it is it helped me fuel my passion for real estate. And so at an early age, it was something that I was very passionate about because it was coming from a European family. There's a lot of construction that was in my background. But not only that, my dear uncle started investing in real estate, and at a very young age, I joined him to fix anything that went wrong at the rental property. And so
that was your little summer job. Like I have European friends and guy friends, and that's their summer side hustle. I'm working with Uncle so and so plumbing or doing something, right?
Right, absolutely. So I was just very interested, and naturally, I'm just a human who likes to ask questions. At the same time, it's just something that I'm very natural in doing because that's just who I am. And so very curious. I always ask questions as to why these people were living in this home, and I couldn't really figure out why they were living in his home because I knew he was the owner, but it really resonated with me when he stated the fact that these people were paying him money to stay in his house, which was paying off his mortgage. Obviously, my second question was, what's a mortgage? And so, not to belabor the facts, but we all know what a mortgage is, and he gave me the answer, and I was always intrigued. And with having said that, it led me to really want to really have something tangible that I can feel and touch. And so naturally, I got into the real estate game in terms of becoming a landlord and buying rental properties and having a portfolio of them.
Okay, but you talk about a full-time job, but yet you talk about this side hustle. So how does the full-time job fit in? So you're doing your summer stuff, you're asking questions, you're curious. Are you starting out of the starting block, having both, or, walk me through that?
So that's a very good question. So when I was at my wonderful company and a great company to work for, a Fortune 500 company, it was my dream to always work at a corporate setting. And then when the mortgage crisis hit in 2007, 2008, it really opened my eyes. And what I mean by that is my wife and I were married at the time for 5 years, and we were expecting our first child. And at that time, the company had decided to restructure. And it really came to heart, oh my God, if I ever lost my position or lost my job, then I would be in disarray. I would be in trouble. And at that time, it really piqued my interest to become an entrepreneur and try to invest in exactly what I was saying, which for me is real estate. So I bought my first property, and that was okay, but it was definitely a challenge to get there. And what I mean by that is friends and family are very loving and very supportive, but they also have their own views. And I appreciate everyone's view and viewpoint, but it can become, uh, you know, a distraction when they're not supportive.
Right.
And so what I mean by that is, don't get me wrong, I love my family dearly and also my friends, but I guess not being supportive with my idea really resonated with me. And I'm kind of a go-getter, and I like to do things my way. And don't get me wrong, I appreciate what everyone provides as feedback. But the number one thing was I believed in what I wanted to do. I believed in my goal. And to be quite honest, at the time, my wife wasn't very favorable of the idea. But nonetheless, it took a very, not convincing, convincing is the wrong word, but a very good sit down discussion to talk about my dream. And so when you're with your life partner, who I'm with, and I love her to death, my point is, even though you're partners, you're married, etc., and you trust each other through and through, the partner will always think differently. And so my point is, she wasn't in favor of me investing into, and real estate is not an easy thing to get into. They're very expensive things to buy. And so
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like there's a ton of questions going through my head as you're telling this story, and I'm like, okay, like, yeah, let's just go into our pocketbooks.
Absolutely. But I already had a plan and a strategy in place for how I wanted to achieve the goals that I wanted. And so I asked her to give me a chance and trust me. And so we had a very thorough conversation, and that conversation was very positive. And I assured her I was not going to invest or do anything to get us into any trouble, because I really believe in something. And being with someone, you kind of have to trust what they have or what they want to do, and move forward with that. Reason being is, I always support my friends and family, especially my spouse, through and through. So I kind of expect the same thing. And so it was a great conversation. And ever since then, it was quite easy for me to perceive an understanding with her, but also go ahead with the goals that I wanted to get into. And so she's like, okay, well, try it out. I trust you, love you. And I bought my first one. And that was probably the toughest purchase I ever had to make, because at the same time, we already had a house. We were fortunate enough to have a house when we got married, and I wanted to get into a second home as a rental property. So that first investment property was very hard to do, not only through my wife, but through my friends and family, who just didn't understand the vision, or the risk that I was going to take. And again, I took that criticism and constructive criticism, and I took it to heart. But I also use it as my fuel I don't want to say prove them wrong, but it was just something that I had to do for myself.
I get that. Well, let's take it back a little bit here. So here it is, you're in a job. Everybody knows what restructuring means. So people are getting fired. And everybody's on pins and needles because nobody wants to get fired.
Yeah.
Did you lose your job, or did you still have your job, but it was a wake-up call that should something happen? Like, were you still in a secure position?
So that's a very, very good question. So what happened was, I was very fortunate and I did keep my job, but my neighbor and coworkers, 50% of them were gone. And so that was a complete wake-up call. And that was where I took advantage of the situation, came up with my plan, and started investing. And it was probably the best thing I ever did.
So here it is. All of a sudden you realize, so you're like one of those that you see somebody put their hand on the fire, and if they get burned, you're not going there. So here it is. You now have this wake up call. You realize I'm going to be proactive. And I like that because a lot of times we sit and wait for things to happen and the writing's on the wall. And I like the fact that you demonstrated the ability to be proactive and you had the foundation there. So, I mean, for anybody listening, it doesn't have to be real estate, but I think that we all in life, there are a lot of moments where we know, things are about to blow up, but we just kind of sit passively. We're not proactive.
Right.
And a lot of us, I think, we're born with foundations. We just haven't utilized those skills or the things that we've learned and brought them forward and use them to be proactive with situations. So I like the fact that you did that. And then here it is. I like the relationship piece because I think that there are so many people out there, including myself, not just relationship with your significant other, however, with your family members, is when you are a visionary, which obviously you are. You're an innovative, out of the box, creative thinker and a risk taker. A lot of people are not risk takers. It's about being safe. So here it is. The feedback is really, guess what, guys? Or guess what, Corrado? I don't feel safe. I'm in a limiting place and I need you to stay with me. So don't take that risk because I'm scared for you, but really they're scared for themselves. And not to say that they don't mean well for you. So I like the fact that you pressed through that and you believed in yourself enough to say, hey, listen, I'm going to go for it anyway. I appreciate and respect all that you have to say. However, I can't let that, it has distracted me, but I can't let that distract me because the idea of not following that nudge is going to kill me more than following it and seeing what the possibilities are. So congratulations on all those little nuggets that I think we can all take away and walk away with. So now, let's talk about, as you explain in the book, part-time, full-time, part-time millionaire. So now you've got this, you're now investing into real estate. How are you gaining capital? Where are you getting this money from?
So due to the fact that I had a full-time job, it gives you a lot of credibility in order to approach a bank and obtain financing. With that, you do have to save a little bit of money. And obviously you'll need some down payment to put forward. But also I looked into, because the second investment property was definitely easier than getting a third and fourth. And then fifth, sixth, seventh. So it's like, as you continue to gain debt, you need to be able to service that debt. So I've only done it through traditional banks. One time where it was just very crucial that I obtained this property, I had to go through a B lender. And so those B lenders are people that you can find through mortgage brokers. Mortgage brokers are fantastic. They have a complete slew of contacts with major banks, but also B lending type of companies that will look to take a greater risk, but you are paying a little bit in interest rate. But hey, that comes with the territory. And so quickly after making that purchase with the B lender, I was able to get financing from an A lender, being another bank.
So let's talk about the psychology of because obviously you're a risk taker. You use the word debt, third, fourth, fifth rental property, B lenders. The average person barely can hear the word debt with credit cards, let alone now you've got all these properties that you're leveraging. How are you sleeping at night? How are you not crumbling with all the feedback and the criticisms and, how are you not crumbling?
Well, it takes a certain person. So I slept fine at night. For some odd reason, I was okay with it. And I guess it's due to the fact of my vision. I knew exactly what I needed to do in order to pay off the debt so that it was all mine one day. And that was always my strategy, always the long-term strategy. Even if I couldn't rent the property, I knew it was going to get rented sooner rather than later, or maybe not. Maybe
So
opposite.
what was your threshold of, like, if a property, like, have you been successful with all your properties, or what was your where was your risk tolerance level set to that you would say, okay, it's time to let this one go?
For me, I was always concentrating in location. It was very imperative for me to invest in location versus the actual unit. If you always have a very popular location, especially with transit, local stores, anything that you need in walking distance, to me, that's a very desirable location, and hence why I paid a little bit more to invest into those locations. And when I say a little bit more, it's minimal on an interest rate level, even if you're investing, let's say, $30,000 to $50,000 more. It's actually very feasible and very cheap to do that leap when you want to buy something a bit better, because the interest rate is just a percentage of. And so the percentage of it kept me comfortable with being able to buy and leveraging a little bit more debt to get that desirable location.
So you're
That's
very good with numbers because you're talking about the interest rates. So you're very calculated with so in essence, what I'm hearing is it's not as much as I'm saying you've got your risk tolerance levels high. It was a calculated risk tolerance. So your risk tolerance level could be very secure because you're a calculated risk taker.
very true. Absolutely. So with anything that I do, I am a precise planner as much as I can be. I plan for everything. And for this, it's been part of my plan. My plan has always been to become an entrepreneur, leverage and do the best that I can at my full-time position. And now I'm a full-time entrepreneur. And so I'm no longer at the Fortune 500 company that I was at, which is a fantastic company to be at. And I appreciate and cherish all the relationships that I made there. And I still have those relationships today. And that's just who I am. I like to keep in contact. I like to always understand what people are doing, because I genuinely care about my friends and family, so on and so forth. It's just something that's in me. And so yeah, that's what yeah, that's me.
Okay, all right. So let's talk about this now. So now, we get an idea of your journey at, starting out, being introduced to the real estate world, having the difficult conversations with family members, etc., and just moving forth and becoming very successful. That it leads you to a place where you can now leave the organization that you're employed with and now become a full-time business person, entrepreneur, and really grow this to a whole other level, which is great. And now all of a sudden, I got to write a book. You care about people, you care about, family members, you care. You just, in addition, it's not about, and I like that. I appreciate you going through life and saying that I care about everybody around me. What's inspiring the book now?
So that's a very touching and personal question, which I'm more than willing to answer. And thank you for asking it. And so the pure motivation was I lost my father at a very early age. And so that obviously had an impact on me, because he was my motivator. He was the guy who cared so much about me and didn't want me to take these risks, and was against me taking these risks. So he wasn't a supporter in that regard, but it was only because he cared. And so unfortunately, when my father passed away, I learned so much more about him after he passed away. And so one day, fast forward, 7 years We had our first child in 2008, second child in 2011. And fast forward 5 years, I started writing the book in 2017. We were on vacation on the beach, and I was literally looking at my children playing in the sand and the water. And I look over to my wife, and as always, she has a book in her hand and enjoying life on the beach. And I looked at my kids, looked at my wife, looked at the book, and I was like, okay, I'll be right back. And I went and picked up from the room my tablet and went back to the beach and sat on my lounging chair, and I just started writing. And I kept on writing, and it just totally allowed me to put down my thoughts. But the main reason why I tell you this is because I don't want my children to ever feel that they don't know their father. And I want them to know their father before I die. We all know everyone's going to pass away, but I wanted to ensure, just in case something happened to me, my kids knew exactly who their father were. Full-time, part-time millionaire. And it's definitely something that I'm very proud of. And I'm hoping that my kids will be proud of me as well. They have already read the book, but they're still fairly young. They don't really grasp. They have a ton of questions, but I love it. I love the questions. I hope they read it again so they can ask me a ton of questions. So
Right.
the main motivator was just to make sure that they didn't go through what I did. And I love my dad dearly. He left this earth way too early, and I just wanted to ensure that my kids knew who their dad is.
So you're about legacy as well, leaving that legacy, leaving that stamp, leaving that imprint, and allowing your kids to be able to document it so that not just your kids, but future generations will be able to access where they come from.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so the book is just my story and my example of how you can achieve the goals that you really want. My story just happens to involve real estate. Your story can involve whatever you're passionate about. The 10 techniques that are inside my book will explain how to be very thoughtful, mindful, and how to execute on you just have to be very, very patient. You have to understand that you're going to go through a time of planning, saving, and coming up with an idea, which you probably already have. The book just explains to you how you put in place and how to achieve your goal. And
So let's
that's
talk about the book a little bit then. So
yeah.
what can people, so you're suggesting what can people expect? Some techniques and tips on along with your story on how your process through it all.
So it's funny you say that, because the techniques that I explain in the book are everyday things that we actually do.
Mm.
And obviously I'm not going to spoil it for those who want to learn and explore the book, but these techniques are, believe it or not, things that we take for granted and we don't do habitually. And so it just outlines, by doing certain things, reacting certain ways, it will allow you to come up with your thought process, then continuously doing the things that you promised yourself you want to do, and then it explores how to get there. And again, it's just, real estate is my example, but the book and the techniques can be applied to anything.
Mm. So it's transferable. So what happens when somebody doesn't have a house to leverage? How does somebody, still take advantage of opportunities before them? Or what does somebody do when they don't have, they're living from paycheck to paycheck? What does somebody do to create a side hustle when they feel that they have no other way to turn, or no access to resources, financial resources?
See, I believe it's human nature that everyone wants something tomorrow. And what people really need to realize, that patience is a virtue, and
Mhm.
it's very important to be extremely patient. My example is, I didn't have a house No one gave me a house. No one gifted me anything. I worked hard. I saved a percentage of my pay every time I got paid, because I've been working since I was 13 years old. And I was able to save enough money to purchase my first home at 22.
Mm.
So that was my mechanism to actually save the down payment. And not even the down payment, it was the deposit. And then and because it was a house that was on plan, so it wasn't even constructed yet, I then made a plan to save more money to put down that down payment. So you definitely need to come up with the deposit in my example, because it was a new construction. All you have to do is put down a deposit, and then by the time you close, you put down your down payment. So it was very calculated. Again, it was my deposit and then structuring what I needed to save on a monthly basis to get to my down payment goal.
It's interesting when you talk about that. There's, I don't know if you know Lisa Nichols. She's a renowned speaker, and she tells a lot about her story about coming from poverty and not understanding how to break that psyche. And her psyche was, she every time she got paid, she had money forwarded into a bank account, but she never went to look at the bank account.
Oh, wow.
And then she challenged herself, and she decided that she had more aggressive goals. So she went and got another job, and she deposited, I believe, if remember the story correctly, she ended up forwarding that entire paycheck over to this bank. And she had never gone into this bank. And then she went to the bank, and they were all waiting to see who she was. And she said she couldn't believe how much money was in the bank. I want to say it was like 60,000, but for her, that was a big deal. She was a single mother, living on her own, just barely making it, living paycheck to paycheck, but decided to challenge herself financially initially and then raise the game on that. And it took her to a place where she now had enough money to pursue. So I like the fact that you're talking about that discipline aspect and the patience aspects mixed together. So it is understanding that a percentage of your paycheck, you understood that concept from an early age of 13, that I'm going to save a percentage and I'm going to be patient.
I can't take credit for all of it. I do have to give my mom some big kudos for that. She was the mechanism who said, Corrado, give me your paycheck and we're going to save a percentage and put it into a separate bank account and forget about it. So it was definitely my mom who helped me with that aspect. And that's another key thing that everyone needs to think about. Surround yourself around people who really care about you, have good ideas, but also same ideas. And so it's not like my mom was a real estate mogul, but she just understood the concept of patience, but also saving a portion of your money and just having a savings in general.
Absolutely. It's interesting. We're going to digress for a moment and then we'll get back on track, because I've always taught my kids 50% when first of all, I said, right now you're in your saving years. There's absolutely no reason for you to be spending any money. If somebody gives you $20, that $20 leads to $40 to whatever, just save it. I said, one of the hardest muscles that human beings develop is the saving muscles. The spending muscles, we have great big muscles on spending. We have to develop the saving muscle. And so I said to my kids, that's what I want you to learn first in life, is how to save, because you will have a lifetime to spend. Secondly, for every dollar you make, when you do get to that point where you start spending, you live off 50% of your earnings. If you got to buy a house, anything that you do, it's only 50% of your earnings you're allowed to survive off of. The other 50% goes into savings. So we'll see. We'll fast forward. I don't know. We'll find out. They're good savers, I will tell you that. We'll find out on the 50%, because they're
Lucky to have you as a mom.
Well, you know what? It's because what I want to talk to you about leading into getting back on track is, especially being spiritual and the whole religious world. And, we're to feel bad, money and money is the root of all evil. But yet we live in a society that requires money to not only take care of ourselves, to fulfill our desires, and we're living below what we actually desire financially. where was your thinking in that area?
Can you explain that a bit further?
Yeah, like, a lot of people don't believe that they desire it, but they don't believe they're worthy of it. So they don't go after it. They won't talk about the numbers. They won't, and I know we've spoken offline and you're very comfortable talking about the numbers. Where did your worthiness come in where you didn't think about that? You didn't think about whether or not, you didn't think whether or not it was okay or not okay to talk about money. You just talked about money. This is what it is. I like money and I feel okay to make it. I want to make it. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to create a side hustle. You didn't have a blockage in that area. You were just very open.
That was something that was in me since a young boy. Whenever I got the answer no, it gave me more ammunition to turn into a yes. And not that that has anything to do with my own spiritual being, but it was just the fire in me to, and again, I don't want to sound like vindictive or anything, but it was just proving to myself that they are wrong and no one else. I'm not here to hurt anyone, but it was just, I thought I had a good idea. If you're not supportive of that idea, that's your opinion, and thank you very much. But I'm going to continue with what I believe in. And so
you're stubborn.
I am stubborn, yes, without a doubt. but I leave, my message to everyone is, if you believe in something so much and someone is telling you no, who are they to say no to you? Imagine you said no to them. I'm sure they would have a rebuttal or some sort of, not a confrontation, but maybe an argument, a civil argument about it. Everyone's human. Not everyone likes to hear the answer no. So the fuel to my fire was essentially proving it to myself. Not that I was right, but hey, let me fail. It's okay to fail. It really is okay. And I always told myself, because I started at a young age, because I'm so young, if I do fail, I can pick up again. And from that failure, you learn so much. Don't get me wrong, it hasn't been all roses this entire journey. I've had my hiccups, but I've learned so many valuable lessons from those failures, or I like to call them mistakes. And then I'm able to fix that mistake, alter what I was thinking, maybe not buy in this area, but buy in that area. And that's where I came up with always looking for location when I was looking for my investment properties. And it's done me well. It's definitely done me well. And it's because of experience. If I can leave, a message to everyone, failure is not bad. You learn so much from those failures and you grow so much as a human being, as a person, that it's quite telling what you can achieve once you just pivot and change a little thing, change here and there, and still go ahead and capture what you dream to do.
Right. We have Lolo Jennings writing in, and I believe you wrote this a little bit back about the money principles that with our kids. I really wish those values were instilled into me and my siblings when we were young. So thank you for tuning in and watching. Yes, I think that I wish, I came from the psychology. My family upbringing was borrow now and pay later. And if you didn't know how to pay later, don't worry about it. We'll figure it out. So it was quite, something very different that I wanted to instill in my kids, which was, you don't buy anything unless you have the money sitting in the bank account waiting for it. And, I never did allowances. I never did IOUs. Can I borrow the money or anything like that? It was no, if you don't have it, you just don't have it. You just got to wait. Like you said, have patience. Let's take it back to the failure piece and the mistake piece. And, I embrace the word. I don't even look at the word as being a failure. I like the fact that you talked about, you're young and whatever it is, you have more time to make it up. And I say to my children all the time, I'm like, you are in your prime. Because I know we had an offline conversation where your heart really is for a lot of the kids coming out of university to the US. It's colleges here where, we've got US listeners, and you really had a heart towards people, kids coming out of school, young adults coming out of school, and letting them understand how to have that side hustle. And I say to my kids, you're young, you're coming out, for those, because I know everybody's situation's different, but if you are in a position where you are at home, take your risks where you're not married, if you have a boyfriend, a significant other, boyfriend, girlfriend, doesn't matter, like just take your risks now. These are you're in your prime to take your risk, because those risks really aren't failures. It's your learning grounds for how to perfect what's about to come next.
Very well said, Tanya. Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. At a young age, you can get up and rectify whatever it is that went wrong. And again, failure isn't the greatest word, so I agree with you. So it's just rectifying what went wrong and pivoting and altering some things to make your dream a reality. And for me, I was quite fortunate. It worked out, and it continues to.
And it continues to work out for you because what? What do you think that why? Everybody has an underlying knowing. I believe we're intuitive beings. So what's that one little thing that you know deep down inside about yourself? Why you continue to succeed even in the rough terrains of going through the process of getting to where you want to go?
Number one, you need to believe in yourself. Not only that, if you have a plan, and I'm not saying your plan has to always be positive, you also have to plan for the negative. And so that is a part and parcel of your overall plan. Plan A, and then what's plan B? There's no plan C in my mind, because it's either yes or no, nothing in between. And so if things didn't work out with plan A, then I have a plan B on how to reschedule, think about new things, and get back on my feet by being able to leverage other things, talking to my network, because in my in my book, it also speaks to networking. It's very, very important to have a niche network within your environment so you can leverage. It's
I
funny.
want to hit on 2 points that you just said. I want to keep the audience there at 2 points. Give me 1 second. As Lolo's writing in, yes, do it when you're young because there's so much more at stake when you have more people you are responsible. Absolutely. Let's talk about plan A and plan B. So what I like about what you're saying, and I just want to be clear that I understand what you're saying, because I always say to my kids, never have a plan B. Because if you have a plan B, you'll never ever succeed at plan A. But your plan A and plan B, your plan B, am I understanding correctly, is an appendix to the plan A, meaning there really is no plan B. It's just restructuring plan A, but there is only a plan A. Am I understanding that correctly?
You got it, Tanya.
Okay.
Absolutely, without a doubt. It's always about plan A, because plan A is the positive piece, and that's what you want to achieve. But we don't live in a fantasy world. This is the real world. And so I use plan B as an alternative on how to recoup and get back to plan A.
Okay. So audience, I want you to hear that, because for me personally, and I mean, it's just everybody has their own way of thinking. I'm always like, if you got a plan B, you'll never ever achieve plan A, because more people are planning for plan B, hence why they have a plan B, where when plan A is all you have and you restructure to get back on track with plan A, I like that. So I want everybody to understand that and be clear that, Corrado, you always stick to plan A. It's just about reworking plan A when you're hitting the bumps, when you're hitting brick walls, when you're not able to get over that brick wall. How are we gonna still achieve plan A? What are we gonna do? Also, I want to talk about the niche, and I want to talk about the niche networking that you're talking about. What does that look like? Because a lot of times I feel that we don't have enough support around us. We don't have enough people that we can speak to openly, honestly, if we want to call it a mastermind group, whatever we want to call it, we don't set ourselves up for success by having the right people around us that can help us. What does that look like in your world?
Well, it's much different now than when I grew up. We didn't have the Facebooks, the Instagrams, the social media that we have today. I wouldn't say it's easier today. It's a lot more in your face and you have a lot more selection today. But back in the day, when I was growing up without social media, it was all about the individuals that you associated yourself with. And obviously, growing up through high school, college, and university, you talk to people, you introduce yourself, you make friends. But for me, it was always me asking the questions. I was always very interested in the other person. And so very early on, I knew if I wanted to hang out with that person or not. And I was very astute in understanding and seeing if that person, he, she, and I had anything in common. It's like I have many friends that I don't have, everything in common, but that's why they're my great friends. But then my best friends, we have everything in common. And so that's what I mean by being selective, but also understanding who you want to be surrounding yourself with. Your network is very, very important. Who you associate yourself with others is very important, but you really need to understand who you want to be around. No one can answer that for you. It is very personal, a personal opinion of who you want to hang out with, because not that you want to take advantage of them or anything like that. It's just you have so much in common. You become so tight, really good friends, best friends, the case may be, and you grow together and you help each other. And so
It's interesting. I gotta comment on that if you'll allow me to.
yeah,
I like the way you're putting that, because I always had issues growing up when people say, "Oh, opposites attract," and I'm like, yeah, I understand the concept. However, I said, me being with somebody that we're moving in the same direction, we're going to get there further. We're going to get further there faster. Two are better than one. And I think it's important when kids are coming out of school. One of the courses I think should be an exit and an outro to Annie. I don't care if you're at college, community college, it doesn't matter where you are. I think one of the outros courses should be defining your values and your standards. Because when you understand what your value system is, what your interests are, what you said, where you become the observer, you automatically are able to decipher very quickly, this is not in alignment with my values, this is not in alignment with my goals. And it's not about picking and choosing from a superior inferior perspective. I'm better than you, you're better than me. It is about being in alignment and true to who you are, about understanding what makes you happy, what makes you tick, what's desirable, where you want to go. Does this person add value to my life? Because I know the type of value that I'm going to contribute into their life. So it's creating that standard with that network that you're creating. So I appreciate that you understood that at a very early age.
And I really appreciate, kids going into university or college. If I had the book that I had going into college, university, it would just give me a bit of a step forward, a step up, I mean. And that's another reason why I wrote the book, is to also help individuals at a very early age who don't have that network established as of yet. Hey, check out this book. This is how you can take the steps to get there. And so again, it's a self-help book, and genuinely coming from my heart of what my experience has been, and it's all facts, and sharing it with everyone.
And you're the real deal. You came from your Fortune 500 company.
Yep.
You resigned. You didn't quit. You resigned because it was time to move on.
Yep.
Voluntarily, because it was time for something that actually the foundation was laid as a teenager. The opportunity presented itself. You had some good I wouldn't say that you were awake necessarily. If I hear your story correctly in this interview, I'm not necessarily sure that all those seeds your mom planted, she understood how or why, but she gave you the values that, and you know what, in fairness to you, you also were open to taking that advice as well, because a lot of times, and I'm speaking on behalf of my own children, that I'll plant seeds and sometimes it just feels like resistance. You know, they do it anyways, but somewhere down the road, I think it'll eventually stick. I have faith in them. It'll stick.
I'm sure it will. I'm sure it will.
But there can't, we don't always pick up what our parents are teaching us, and then are able to transfer it over into fulfilling our dreams and our desires. And you obviously uniquely were able to do that. So congratulations to you.
Thank you, Tanya. I really appreciate that. It's key to be a very good listener. You don't always want to be the speaker. It's always good to hear and get the advice from those who have the experience. And that's what I did. And I was a very astute listener, and it definitely helped me on my journey.
So we had a previous realtor as well, Mike Yatt, on the show back at the later half of 2020, and he, you know, there's something very similar about you two, very successful, you know, in your careers, in your professions, entrepreneurs, successful entrepreneurs. He had graduated in 2008, and there was a recession, no jobs, and the market led him to real estate. Never what he was intending. But I'm always not interested necessarily about the real estate, however, the avenue and the process of what took you there. And what I heard from you and I heard from him is you guys are sponges. You're curious,
Yeah.
you're open, and you're committed.
Right.
So there's a foundation there that is rock solid. The one thing that you two also have in common is you believe in yourselves that much. And I think that if you don't believe in yourself, the foundation is rocky. You can doubt a little bit along the way, as you said. It's not always a bed of roses. That's okay. But there has to be a fundamental belief in thyself.
I agree 100%, for sure. The journey hasn't been, like I said, a bed of roses, but the journey continues on, but it starts with you. And you need to believe in yourself, believe in the idea, have a plan A with a complementary plan B to complement plan A, etc. And sky's the limit. Again, I'm still not that old. I aspire and want to do more. And it you know, being an entrepreneur full time now, it will allow me to explore my way. And yeah, I'm going to make mistakes, but it's okay, because those mistakes will give me the power to rectify, pivot, and move forward. And trust me, I'm only going to work harder to make sure that I am successful.
Nice. So I have two questions lurking in my brain. The first question is, what advice can you give to somebody out there that wants to be, you know, a multimillionaire, but they're challenged in their own belief system and their own psyche, and believing they're worthy to even be that? What kind of advice do you have for somebody like that?
Well, I would like to understand why they don't believe in themselves. What is it that they think that they're not worthy to go after that goal? Because I just don't understand that. Because I believe in myself, and if I'm the person who has always been saying, if you don't ask, you will never know. And you will lead your life never knowing the answer if you didn't ask. So it's for me, if I can do what I've done, I know anybody can do it without a doubt. It is something that I find confusing when I don't see the confidence in people, because I see it from, 3 feet away, and yet they're downplaying themselves. I just don't understand why they would do that. So that's a very hard question for me to answer, because I just don't understand that psyche where you don't believe in yourself. It's something that hasn't been in me. Trust me, I've had a lot of negativity thrown my way, and I just use it to fuel that fire that I have inside that I want to go ahead and do.
And
So
would you consider yourself a high achiever?
I'm sorry.
Would you consider yourself a high achiever?
In business, yes. In school, no.
Well, hey, anybody, you can watch previous shows. I've said it in many episodes. I am, and I say this over and over again, I'm not suggesting school is not a good thing. However, it has always perplexed me that we push for kids to go to school, and it's the high school dropouts or the school dropouts that believe in themselves, have a vision, have the drive, and again, believe in themselves,
Yeah.
that become the billionaires, that the overly educated end up working for the dropouts. So it's I've always wrapped, like, I've wrestled with that concept of how crazy it is. So
No, absolutely. And Tanya, to go back to your original question on, those people who don't believe in themselves, what helped me was reading. It was just something that I really liked to do. I always liked to write. It was something that I always enjoyed, creative writing and coming up with and making up stories, etc. But what really enticed me to write the book is because I was so curious to understand how these multimillionaires did it, find out how they did it. But how do you do that? You need to read something, research it somehow. And I read all their stories about how they became wealthy. And so that's where the inception of my novel came into play, because I'm like, if they can do it and they put on their pants the same way I do, I think I can do it.
absolutely. I love it. I love it. I love it. And isn't that what we teach our kids too? Like, you can do and become anything that you want. And here it is, you're hearing it, you're living it, you're breathing it. And I got to ask this question because a lot of my audience, they do vision boarding, they do journaling, etc. Are you somebody that did vision boards, or were you just somebody that vision was just within you and you executed it?
I did not do any vision boards at all. It was all within me, but I am a very visual learner. For me to understand something through and through, I do need to put it on a board to visualize the concept, the process flow, and how to get to end the job. So yes, you hit it on the nose. At the beginning, it was just something in me, but in order for me to learn something 100%, I do need to visualize it.
You had to map it out and
You
just
got it.
to be able to look at it all the time.
Yeah.
And you talked about I just want to take it back to the belief. And what does a day look like for you as an entrepreneur? When we hear about, everybody wants to study the Warren Buffetts of the world, and what does their day look like? What does a day for Corrado look like as you're now multimillionaire, millionaire, you've written a book, you succeeded, and you just started. I'm going to say you just started.
Yeah. I'm not done, Tanya. I'm not done.
Right. So you got a long, not a lot. I'm not going to put it out there along with you. There's still a lot of area for you to capitalize on.
Absolutely.
Right. So what does the day look like for you?
It really encompasses time with my family, to be honest. Having two children, ages 10 and 13, I just want to be around, and having that freedom to be with them, nurture them, and help them along the way, and try to steer them as much as possible in a positive, I guess, laneway, you can say, but also with my spouse. My wife and my kids are my number one, and I'm a complete family man, and I grew up that way. I grew up with my grandparents raising me, taking me to their summer cottage every single summer and spending it up there with them, and that really resonated me, and I'll never forget how much I enjoyed. But I trusted them so much, and I want my family to trust me and my wife, etc. And again, what is life all about? It's about providing for your family, teaching, providing wisdom, and then nurturing, and hopefully you get a better version of yourself.
I love it. I absolutely love it. I like the fact that you've been able to create a lifestyle through your hard work, because you said, like, I'm sure there's moments where you woke up at 5 in the morning or went to bed late at night or didn't
Many,
sleep
many
at all,
times.
just to, map it out and make sure things were running smoothly. Or how are we going to, there's always those hidden pieces that people don't see in the dark. When people see me on a talk show, I'm like, guys, it took me how many years to get here? It
Absolutely.
wasn't, it is easy now, and it was easy to start it. However, it took a lot to get to this moment. So, congratulations to you, um, on so many levels. Being able to work that hard to be able to create that time for your family and to be with your children, and to have that desire to want to spend time with them even in the midst of your success, because a lot of time we don't talk about the burnouts that happen where we get to where we want to go, but it demands more of us.
Right.
And when it demands more of us, we actually lose the opportunity to spend with our children or our family, because we've got more responsibilities and more things to do that take us away from that. So congratulations for balancing that out and seeing that as well. Thank you. I guess for me, what stands out for me is thank you for wanting to share with others and having the desire to want to see people succeed by putting yourself out there, writing a book, and being vulnerable, really, and making your dad proud through all this work, and then creating something for the future generation in your own family to draw upon. Talk to the audience about where they can find and purchase your book, please.
So you can find my book on my website at ftptm.com, which is fulltime-part-time-millionaire.com. And you can also buy it at Amazon, Chapters, Indigo, Books A Million, pretty much any bookstore online. You can find my book. And by all means, there's a hard copy, which is a soft copy, and then there's a soft copy that is downloadable only through Amazon. Though it seems that the primary purchases do occur on Amazon, so hence why I have both versions.
So there you have it, guys. You can buy Full-Time Part-Time Millionaire on Amazon, Chapters, Indigo, and it Books A Million, you said?
Yep, that's a US chain.
A US, okay. And is it what? ftptm.com.
Yes.
ftptm.com. So 5 letters, ftptm.com. That's your website. You're also on Facebook under the same FTPTM, which is Full-Time Part-Time Millionaire. You've got an account there. Please go ahead and follow and subscribe to Corrado, as well as you are on Instagram as well, under Corrado DeRosa. And I made the mistake by saying DE, but it's DIROSA, DeRosa. So please go ahead and follow. Thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you, Tanya. Thank you so much for your time and then having me as your guest.
Yes, it was nice. It was very insightful into the psyche of yourself. Thank you all for joining us this evening. Please tune in tomorrow, where we will have Deanna Rinelli joining us on empathy. All right. Remember to like and subscribe, Tanya Talks 4. If you're looking to take your life to the next level, please visit thetanyaexperience.com. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in, and have a great evening. Good night, everyone. Bye-bye. Bye, Corrado.
Bye, Tanya.